I told you that the wealthiest man in the entire valley owned absolutely nothing. No house, no gold, no land, no name recorded in any merchant's book. Just a robe, a bowl, and a silence so deep it made kings uncomfortable. This is his story, and somewhere inside it is a lesson that may change the way you see everything you own. High in the mountains above a prosperous valley, there lived a monk named Kaido. He had lived there for 40 years. The villagers below knew of him, but few had ever made the journey up the narrow stone path to find him. Those who did came back different. Not louder, not richer, not more powerful. Quieter, as if something heavy had been lifted from their shoulders, something they hadn't even noticed they were carrying. Kaido's life was simple to the point of invisibility. Each morning, he rose before the sun. He swept the stone path outside his small hut, not because it was dirty, but because the act of sweeping reminded him that each day began fresh. He ate one meal, rice, sometimes a vegetable, enough. He sat in stillness for hours, watching the valley below fill with the noise and movement of people, chasing things. He asked for nothing. He needed nothing. And yet, every person who spent even 1 hour in his presence walked away feeling as though they had been given something extraordinary, something they could not name. His name was Dechai, and by every measure that the valley understood, Dechai was a success. He owned 3 trading houses, 12 warehouses along the river, a home with 40 rooms, most of which he had never entered. He wore robes of the finest silk, his servants numbered in the dozens. When he walked through the market, people stepped aside. He had everything, and he could not sleep. Night after night, Dechai lay in his enormous bed, staring at the ceiling of his 40-room house. He had worked for 30 years to build what he had. 30 years of early mornings and late nights, of difficult negotiations and calculated risks, of sacrifices that, at the time, seemed temporary. Once I have the 3rd trading house, he had told himself, then I will rest. Then it was the 4th warehouse. Then the river contract. Then the house with 40 rooms. And now he had all of it. And he felt nothing. Worse than nothing. He felt a quiet, persistent dread, as if something was about to be taken from him, as if the walls of his 40-room house were slowly closing in. His physician said it was his nerves. His wife said it was exhaustion. His business partners said he needed a holiday. But Dechai knew, with the quiet certainty of a man who had spent 30 years trusting his instincts, that none of them were right. Something was wrong at the center of his life, and he did not know what it was. Then one evening, an old woman who sold vegetables at the market said something to him as she handed him his change. She said it casually, without looking up. If you cannot find your answer in the city, perhaps climb the mountain. The monk up there, he has no answers, but somehow, people find their own beside him. Dechai almost laughed. A monk on a mountain. But that night, lying in his enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, he did not laugh. 3 days later, Dechai left his house before sunrise. He told no one where he was going. He left behind his fine robes and wore simple traveling clothes. He left behind his servants. He began climbing. The path was narrower than he expected, steeper. His expensive shoes, made from marble floors and polished streets, were wrong for this. He slipped twice. By mid-morning, his legs ached. His breath came in short pulls. Halfway up, he stopped and looked back at the valley. His city, his empire. From here, it looked small. The trading houses, tiny rectangles, the warehouses, dots along a thin ribbon of river, the 40-room house. He could not even distinguish it from the others. He stood there for a long moment. Then he turned and kept climbing. When Dechai finally reached the top, he found Kaido sitting outside his small hut, eyes closed, perfectly still. The monk did not open his eyes when Dechai arrived. He simply said quietly, "Sit." Dechai sat, and for the first time in years, without planning it, without choosing it, he was completely still. He had expected wisdom. He had expected a lecture, a list of principles, a philosophy to write down and bring home. He had not expected silence, but silence was what he received. Kaido did not ask him why he had come, did not ask about his business, his house, his family, his troubles. He simply existed quietly, completely. And somehow, that was the most disorienting experience of Dechai's adult life. On the first day, Dechai watched Kaido sweep. The monk swept the same small area of stone path 3 times. It was not dirty, there was almost nothing there. "Why do you sweep it again?" Dechai asked. Kaido looked at him. "The path is not the reason for the sweeping," he said. Then he continued sweeping. Dechai thought about that for the rest of the day. He didn't understand it, but he could not stop thinking about it. On the second day, they ate together. Rice, a few vegetables, water from the mountain spring. Dechai had not eaten a meal this simple since he was a child. He was surprised to notice it tasted extraordinary. He said nothing, but Kaido smiled as if he knew. On the third night, Dechai could not sleep again. But this time it was different. It was not the anxious, grasping wakefulness he knew from his house in the city. It was something quieter, something that felt strangely like the edge of a question he had never known how to ask. "What am I carrying?" The thought arrived without warning. He didn't know what it meant, but he stayed with it. On the fourth morning, Dechai rose before the sun. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. He sat outside the hut and watched the mountains lighten, slowly, from black to gray to purple to gold. He had watched many sunrises in his life. He could not remember any of them. He remembered this one. On the 5th day, Kaido spoke. Not philosophy, not teaching. He simply pointed to the valley below and asked, "What do you see?" Dechai looked. "My city," he said, "my business, my home." Kaido nodded slowly. "And when you look at them, what do you feel?" Dechai opened his mouth to answer, and then closed it again, because the honest answer surprised him. "Fear," he said quietly. "I feel afraid." Kaido looked at him without judgment. "Of what?" "Of losing it," Dechai said. "All of it." A long silence passed between them. Then Kaido said, "Tell me, who owns whom?" Dechai sat with those 3 words for a very long time. Who owns whom? He turned them over in his mind like a stone in his hand. He thought about his 3 trading houses. He thought about the hours he spent each day managing them, worrying about them, protecting them from competitors, planning their expansion. He thought about how they appeared in his dreams, sometimes as treasure, sometimes as chains. He thought about the 40-room house, the rooms he had never entered, the rooms he kept, not because he needed them, but because they signaled to the world, to himself, a kind of victory. He thought about the 30 years, the sacrifices he had called temporary, the moments he had traded away, his son's childhood, his wife's companionship, his own youth, for things that were supposed to make him feel safe. And he understood suddenly, with a clarity that felt like cold water on his face. He had not built an empire. He had built a prison. And he was both the prisoner and the warden. That evening, Kaido made tea. 1 small pot, 2 simple cups. They sat beside the fire and Kaido said, almost to himself, A man came to me once who owned 1,000 books. He told me he felt ignorant. A man came who owned 10 houses. He told me he felt homeless. A man came who owned a fleet of ships. He told me he felt like he was drowning. He poured the tea slowly. And a student came to me once, with nothing at all. He sat exactly where you are sitting, and he smiled for 3 straight days. Dechai stared into his cup. What was different about him? Kaido looked at him gently. He had not yet learned to be afraid of losing things he did not have yet. On the 7th morning, Dechai began his descent. He had not solved his business problems. He had not received a list of principles. He had not found what he thought he came looking for. But somewhere on that mountain, in the silence beside a monk who owned nothing, something had been put down. He couldn't name it precisely, but his shoulders were different as he walked. His steps were lighter, and for the first time in 30 years, he was not thinking about what he was walking toward. He was simply walking. The Stoics had a practice called Memento Mori, remember that you will die. Not as a morbid exercise, but as a reminder that everything you hold tightly today, you will one day release. Every object, every title, every achievement, every identity you have built around what you own. All of it temporary. The question they asked was not, how do I get more? The question was, how do I hold things lightly? How do I want without grasping? How do I build without becoming imprisoned by what I have built? Kaido's lesson was not that ownership is wrong. It was not that ambition is a disease. It was simpler than that. What you own can become what owns you if you are not careful. The things in your life are tools. The moment they become your identity, the moment losing them would cost you your peace. They are no longer tools. They are masters. True freedom is not having everything you want. True freedom is needing less than you have. It is the ability to look at everything in your life and say, this is enough, and mean it. Sit with that today. If this story spoke to you, if something in it settled quietly in your chest, subscribe to The Silent Lesson. Every week a new story, a new lesson. Told slowly, told clearly. For those who are still enough to listen.